Hey folks, Jet Blue here with another vlog. This one is, again, taking a bit of a break from Gravity Falls to do a commission. This is for, once again, Shane Denota Hoffman, one of my longest and most loyal Patreon backers. Thank you again, Shane, for your patronage. And the episode in question is Rick and Morty Season 2, Episode 1, A Wrinkle in Time. Here's what I knew about Rick and Morty going in. I had never seen any of it. I believe I had seen The Simpsons couch gag with them, but I can't say for certain. And I know it's on Adult Swim. I knew that it was about a mad scientist, and I thought his nephew. Turned out it was his grandson. And granddaughter, which I didn't know about. I also was under the impression that Morty was the scientist and Rick was the grandson or nephew. Apparently it's the other way around. And that's it. That's all I knew. So I was going in pretty blind. Immediate initial impressions. It made me laugh multiple times, which, as I said with the first Gravity Fall review, is a good sign. Morty is very clearly drawn from the same archetype as, say, Grunkle Stan, or the 12th Doctor, or Scrooge McDuck, or any of several other characters that I am on the record as adoring. He's the classic, complete, cynical jerk who, like most cynics, has a heart of gold underneath. That's kind of the difference between a cynic and an asshole. A cynic is that way because they are protecting themselves, because they believe the world should be better. An asshole is just an asshole. Morty is mostly an asshole, but there's a bit of cynic to him too, as he shows at the end of this episode. The second thing, I absolutely loved the initial split because it felt like it was calling back to one of my favorite cartoons of all time, Duck Amuck. It felt like they were using a tracking error to symbolize this quantum indeterminacy. And division into two separate worlds. I really liked that. Tracking is not something you see people play with much nowadays because it's not relevant to digital forms of recording. Like the Slender Man mythos plays with a bit because some of the early Slender Man things actually did have the conceit that they were being recorded on tape. But other than that, very little of recent vintage has done anything with tracking, because tracking is an artifact of film, of physical analog film. So that was neat. And then the fact that there were all these subtle differences, but not, at least for the first part, with Rick. Rick was always in the same position in both worlds. When he spoke, there was no echo effect or anything because it was in perfect unison, whereas when Summer and Morty spoke, there was an echo because they were slightly out of sync. Sometimes they were saying completely different things. They were standing on opposite sides of him. I really liked that, and I liked the use of a split screen, again, to represent parallel worlds. They were literally in parallel across the screen, and that was great. Then went divided up into four, and Rick, started trying to kill his other self because he thought his other self was going to kill him. I loved that. I really enjoyed that. It reminded me of some stuff I was working on way back in college when I was first playing around with Flash animation, none of which ever saw the light of day, thank goodness. But there was a gag in there about my future self trying to kill me. So I was going to build a time machine and then kill him, which was the, grandfather paradox reason he was trying to kill me, was to stop me from killing him. And then stealing each other's socks got involved so that the other one couldn't go out and build the time machine because he had no socks. Don't ask. Point is, I really enjoyed this idea of fighting your alternate self across universes, of how Rick essentially cannot trust himself because he knows himself. And I like this idea of matching the uncertainty of childhood, of being uncertain about your place in the world, with like quantum uncertainty. The two really don't have anything to do with each other, but it's a fun conceit to play with in a cartoon. The weird alien time travel cop thing was weird and felt rather a lot like padding. But the rest of the episode was really great. I loved the other plot line with the parents. They're a fun couple. They're very much like your standard animated sitcom couple. Like, I could see them coming out of a Seth MacFarlane show, except they don't hate each other. Seth MacFarlane is fundamentally incapable of writing characters who don't hate each other. This is a couple who actually love each other. They annoy each other, but they love each other. And I enjoyed, like, the wife, mom, I don't know her name, the veterinarian, going on this, crusade to try to save this deer, even though as a horse surgeon, I guess deer are harder or something. And just, really determined to prove herself. And the way her husband, supported her and helped her, and the way in which it kind of, in a sense, paralleled the main plot. Because they were both about, like, this character who came across as very certain initially, Rick, the horse surgeon, and then the characters around them that are screwing things up for them, the kids, the husband. But then in the end, you find out, they really do love each other, they really do care about and help each other, and that the real certainty is the relationship between them. That's what provides the certainty that saves the deer, that recollapses all the timelines back together. Which, again, I love the visual of the timelines just multiplying and multiplying and multiplying, and then it switches from showing all at once to, like, zooming back and forth, like, panning between them. That was really well done. I loved that, like, one timeline, like, 1/64th of Rick was willing to sacrifice himself to save Morty. That there's that little spark. That's just a 64th of him. And the rest of him is this cynical asshole bastard. But there's that little spark. That little potential. Because, cynicism is very much the easy way out. We live in a cynical culture. We live in a culture where the primary driving motivation that drives the wheels of our culture is greed, self-interest, where, trusting people is seen as foolish, where, caring about no one and only looking after the bottom line is seen as normal behavior. We live in a very cynical culture. And any kind of sincerity, genuine caring, that kind of thing, is generally seen as weak, foolish, deserving of mockery. And so we get completely cynical entertainment. Like all the crap Seth MacFarlane churns out. Like Futurama after its return to Comedy Central. Like the last 20 years or so of The Simpsons. Like almost anything you see on the evening news, etc., etc., etc. Very cynical culture, and it's rare. Children's entertainment has a little less cynicism because we're kind of divided between wanting children to be innocent, so we give them lots of sincere stuff, and wanting to teach them to be cynical. So there's some sincerity in children's television still to be found, which is one of the reasons why I mostly write and blog about children's television. There's some in adult entertainment too. Doctor Who is a profoundly non-cynical show. Parks and Recreation is a profoundly non-cynical show. And I'm not saying cynical is bad and sincere is good. Game of Thrones is one of the most cynical things ever made, and except for the most recent season, it's a really good show. The most recent season, I almost quit. It was barely watchable. I hope they do better next season, because if they don't, I will quit. But, you know, cynicism is easy. Cynicism is cheap. Sincerity, real meaningful sincerity, is much more difficult to pull off because it's pushing against everything our culture values. Everything our culture thinks is important and intelligent and grown up. And you have to push against all of that to have any trace of sincerity. So even the little bit of having 1/64th of, I want to call him Grunkle, of Rick rescue Morty is a lot. Especially for Adult Swim, which their stock in trade is cynicism and anime. Shonen anime and cynicism. That's basically what Adult Swim is built on. So, yeah, I really liked this. I really felt this was really well done. It had just that little core. I noticed the name Dan Harmon on it, which kind of explains that, because there's a lot in Community of being cynical, tiny bit of sincerity, cynical. That's basically my summary of Community. And now I'm suddenly paranoid that Community wasn't Dan Harmon and I'm confusing it with somebody else. But no, I'm pretty sure Community was Dan Harmon. And yeah, it's you know, if this episode is typical of this show, then this is some good stuff. Even if it's not typical, clearly there's potential for good stuff in this show. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I'm glad that it was commissioned. And I hope I get to watch some more at some point. Bravo, Rick and Morty. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks, everyone. And I'll see you all next time.